Less than 6 minutes. That's all you have to save someone after they collapse suddenly from cardiac arrest.
Since February is American Heart Month, Tisha Thompson and the News 4 I-Team show you how a simple device is saving lives, but only if you take the time now to make sure it's working.
On a rainy Saturday, 74-year-old Alexander McCander went to the gym and hopped onto his favorite elliptical machine.
I was close to 1 hour on the machine when I felt a little queasiness or a little weakness in myself, like I better give up, turn the resistance down, and then things become blank.
McCander's heart had stopped, but a man working out on the elliptical next to him remembered seeing this box at the Jewish Community Center of Greater Washington. He grabbed the automated external defibrillator inside and used it so quickly, he literally brought McCander back from the dead.
The AED, the defibrillator, was the responsible piece of equipment that brought me back to life.
Most folks do come back.
Montgomery County Fire Chief Scott Goldstein says AEDs are amazing machines because they really do work when your heart has an electrical failure. But he says for every minute that goes by, your chances of surviving decreases by 10%. If it takes 3 minutes to apply the AED, you have a 70% chance of survival.
If you work in a facility, you live in a facility, or you frequent a facility where there's an AED, take the step and get a basic training.
The nice thing about these defibrillators is that they will tell you exactly what to do.
Captain Bob Lindsay showed us how easy they are to use. As I did CPR, he followed the machine's directions. We've put the entire demonstration on our NBC Washington app.
Analyzing now.
So if I've never had training and no one around me has had training, but we see a defibrillator, should we still use that defibrillator?
Yes, ma'am, by all means.
I can't hurt the person more by not doing the right thing on this machine.
The worst thing to do is nothing.
Shock advised.
But the devices won't work if the batteries are not charged.
We found out the hard way.
Laurel City Mayor Craig Moe says the batteries powering their AEDs were supposed to last several years.
Found out that the battery was dead. It got to be too much for an individual, which is why we looked at the service contract.
Laurel now spends $26,000 a year to pay an outside company to check the batteries and the pads on more than 100 AEDs. And Mayor Moe says they did it just in the nick of time. The newly charged units have already saved at least one life.
It's $26,000 well spent.
You can often tell if a device is charged by looking here. If you see a green blinking light, a check mark, or a battery symbol, they all mean the device is ready to go. The News 4 I-Team checked out more than 100 AEDs throughout the D.C. area within the last month. We found about half clearly showed the batteries were working, like this one at Martin Luther King Library in the district, and these at Reagan National and Dulles airports. At Tyson's Corner Center, we even saw a visible list of recent inspection dates. Fairfax County tells us it has more than 400 AEDs in its county buildings, all of which are checked by their internal emergency management department. But we couldn't tell if the batteries were charged in about 8% of the devices because we could not see a light or any type of marking. The I-Team contacted the locations. All said they inspected the devices after our call and reported each was in working order.
Call for help now.
Somebody checks the AED to ensure that the battery is still in place. If you don't, when you go to use it, you'll have a unoperable AED.
McCander says he's grateful that JCC regularly checks its AED, so it was ready for him when he needed it most.
I thank God for looking after me. And I am truly thankful to God because I have a family, I have a wife, daughters, grandchildren, and I have a lot to live for.
When we checked out all those AEDs, we found about 20% involve yet another problem Montgomery County's fire chief says is a major obstacle in just getting people to actually use these devices. Tonight at 6, we are going to show you what we found when we take you to a badminton game that changed the lives of 3 strangers. Tisha Thompson, News 4 I-Team.
The News 4i team has uncovered a troubling trend within many government and private buildings.
Life-saving devices that some say can't actually save a life because not enough people can get to them. Since February is American Heart Month, Tisha Thompson and the I-Team show us what they found when they tried to track them down.
For 3 years, Ashley Mendoza always starts her shift typing into the computer, answering the phone.
Call for help now.
While her coworker Clovia Jones makes a lot of noise.
Clothing from patient's chest.
Jones says she always tests the automated external defibrillator, or AED, at Wisconsin Place Rec Center at the beginning of every shift, but never thought she would actually use the thing.
Yeah, it came out of nowhere.
48-year-old Fikar Kular says he never felt any pain, had no idea his heart was about to stop.
I play badminton every Saturday, and one Saturday I just collapsed.
I jumped up, grabbed the AED because I knew exactly where it was. I opened the case, took the pads out, placed the pads, and followed the instructions on the AED.
Jones and Mendoza say they started working on Kular within less than a minute because they knew exactly where to find the AED.
Those precious moments make a big difference between life and death.
Statistics show us that if a patient is defibrillated within the first minute of cardiac arrest, they have a 90% chance of survival. For every minute after that, their chance of survival decreases by 10%.
Montgomery County Fire Captain Bob Lindsay says if you can find a defibrillator,
Connect electrodes.
all you have to do is hit the button and the machine will tell you what to do.
Stand clear. Shock advised.
Which is why Montgomery County's fire chief says the devices should be out in the open, available to everyone, and never out of sight.
And if it's not in plain sight, it's not going to get used.
When the News 4i team checked out more than 100 AEDs throughout our region, we couldn't actually find 20% of them without asking a lot of questions. For instance, at the Smithsonian, we found these near the bathrooms at the Portrait Gallery, but could not find them at the Air and Space Museum. A spokeswoman told us the Smithsonian keeps nearly all 100 of their devices behind their security desks. We couldn't locate AEDs in many of the malls we visited, including the Fashion Center at Pentagon City and Westfield Montgomery, who told us their AEDs are on site in security offices or on mobile units, promising officers can call for one in an emergency. We did see AEDs out in the open at DC's Wilson Aquatic Center and Martin Luther King Jr. Library, but could not find them anywhere in the Wilson building. It took several days for a spokesman to tell us they're actually located in the security offices.
If you don't know it's there, you as the bystander can't call for somebody else to grab the AED.
Chief Goldstein says buildings need to advertise they have the devices available by putting them in the most visible place possible. Because, as the I-Team found, multiple medical studies show the real reason people don't use defibrillators is they're locked up or people just don't see them.
When we have an emergency, we revert back to muscle memory and we revert back to our most basic skills. And having to dig through a cabinet or open a cabinet or desk or locker to get just that medical equipment is not what's going to benefit the patient.
Had we not had that AED machine, he would not have made it out of here.
Both Jones and Mendoza say they now look for the devices in every building they visit.
Where is it?
I want to be able to see the AED or know at least where it is.
It's a habit Fikar Kular says he is especially grateful for.
I would have really died. I was dead for a minute or two, but thanks to the defibrillator, I'm alive again.
We visited a bunch of metro stations as well and found a lot of empty boxes. A spokeswoman told us they actually moved their AEDs into the manager's kiosk 5 years ago because, quote, they offer a climate-controlled environment for the AEDs, which can be negatively affected by the extreme heat and cold at some stations, and that could render them inoperable. You can see Metro's complete statement along with the others on our NBC Washington app. And while you are there, watch our video to see how easy it is to use one of these AEDs in case you ever need it. Tisha Thompson, News 4i team.
Doctors say that sudden cardiac arrest is responsible for more deaths than breast cancer, lung cancer, and HIV combined.
But unlike those diseases, they say we already have the technology to save those lives. We just aren't using it enough. Tonight, Tisha Thompson and the News 4 I-Team show us how some in Congress are trying to change that and why their success may depend on a group of 6th graders.
There's nothing quite like 6th graders meeting for the first time. Meet Lawrence, Sarah, Olivia, Lee, and Brighton. 5 very talkative, totally typical middle schoolers who have no idea what's waiting for them behind this door. But before we show them, we're gonna make them sit there for a little bit because we first have to take you on a trip to Houston, Texas.
I biked up through here. I made it to about right here.
That's where we found Scott Coron, who was just 41 years old when he collapsed on this popular hiking trail.
I fell off the bike with a cardiac arrest and had no pulse and no breathing and was essentially dead.
Coron says an automated external defibrillator, or AED, brought him back to life.
Only 5% of hotels and restaurants have AEDs. Many exercise facilities don't because they're threatened by the laws. They believe that if they have one, they're going to be held to a standard of care of a medical facility, and therefore they're going to be at risk.
He went to his congressman, Pete Olson, who says too many nationwide chains told him they're afraid to install the devices in their stores.
They worry about if they have it in their store, somebody drops down, they try an employee, they'll be sued.
He pointed to his own congressional office building here in Washington, D.C., where the AED warns it can only be used by trained persons because, the congressman says, D.C. has a complicated liability law. But just across the border, in Virginia, you can put one up with no restrictions. Olson says the rules vary so much from state to state, he's introduced the Cardiac Arrest Survival Act to protect any business that installs an AED and anyone who uses it from being sued.
These devices are designed to be used by folks who are not trained medical professionals.
Dr. Jonathan Reiner is a nationally renowned cardiologist at George Washington University and contacted the News 4 I-Team after watching our recent investigation, which found 1 out of 5 AEDs in our area were locked up in offices or hidden away behind security desks.
They should be out in the open rather than locked in an office.
Dr. Reiner thinks too many local businesses lock up AEDs because that complicated D.C. law makes them think defibrillators can only be used by trained personnel. But he says there's a huge amount of scientific research showing the devices are so easy to use, you don't need any training at all to bring someone back to life.
My favorite study is the study that compared 6th grade kids to paramedics.
And that is why our 6th graders are sitting here. We demonstrated what that University of Washington study did by bringing each child, one by one, into the studio, where they were greeted by Captain Lee Silverman.
How you doing?
Captain Silverman trains all of Montgomery County's EMTs and gave each of our 6th graders the same directions used in the scientific study.
We're going to pretend that this mannequin on the floor, his heart is stopped and his breathing is stopped. And what we need you to do is to use this automated external defibrillator. We can't help you and I can't give you any directions, but everything you need is in this box. We want to see how fast you can do it. Okay. All righty?
Ready, set, go for it. We timed each of the kids as they had to first figure out how to open the box, turn it on, find the pads, and then figure out how to stick those pads onto the mannequin. Something that tripped them all up for a bit.
Connect electrodes.
Some of the kids tried to zap the mannequin too quickly, but the machine would not let them do it until it was safe.
Push to shock.
The pads are in right place, so you did well.
With no training, the kids all figured it out on average in 2 minutes and 1 second. Plenty of time to save a life. And similar to what the scientific study found, which showed it takes an average 6th grader just 20 seconds longer to deploy the device when compared to trained paramedics.
Every kid could do it.
Dr. Reiner says, do not be afraid to use an AED. You can't kill someone who's already dead. And as these kids learn, it will only shock someone if they have no heartbeat.
I think a grown-up could handle this,
It's like we did it in like a few minutes.
Because, says our brave little group of 6th graders will now tell you.
They can do this and they should know how to do it so that they can save someone's life.
Congressman Olson says the bill does not cost taxpayers a dime and is the rare bill that both Republicans and Democrats ought to support. But to pass, he says he needs more co-signers and asking folks to email their congressman to tell them to support the bill. Now, experts say it always helps to have a little bit of training, so go to our NBC Washington app for a quick demo on how to use an AED. Tisha Thompson, News 4 I-Team.